Hello, welcome to another. All right, good morning, my neighbors. Welcome to another episode of BYTTT. I'm running a little behind and just trying to get myself together. I had a little bit of an emergency. Let's go ahead and switch up this screen. All right, cool. I think I got everything set up the way I need. All right, perfect. All right. Need my lights. Let's get these lights on. What's going on? Go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and the bell button. That way, people know on the algorithm of the YouTube sphere that I actually bring y'all some really good information and all that good stuff. I would greatly appreciate that because that's how this little algorithm thing works. That said, don't forget, I got everything down below letting you know that at the end of the day, I am doing my one-on-ones. I am selling my charts. If you have trouble putting your charts together, by all means, like I said, it is a 100% money back guarantee. If it does not make you any money, or you feel upset, or it didn't make you enough money, I don't care. At the end of the day, let's get these charts out there so that way the people can get their stuff. All right, so let me go ahead and get this part done. This one there. That's that. All right, that's that one. All right, that looks good. Let's put you here. All right, and we're gonna have CPI data coming in. That's what made me run a little behind. I was anticipating this so much. I done ran looking to take care of all types of stuff, and I fell behind on my schedule. We were supposed to start this at 8, but it's better late than never. So what is going on so far with NQ? It looks like we get ourselves a nice little pop before the CPI data. Let me go ahead and get rid of all these drawings. You already know what's been going on. Nothing spectacular. Let's bring you back. Nope, not this one. Where are you? This one. All right, perfect. So you already know we had this nice little pop. We even made new highs. This is the craziest thing in itself. So it makes me kind of question, are they going to really make this pop? Or are they going to go ahead and try to finesse this? Like they kind of gave us the pop that we needed so that way they can go ahead and drop this thing something vicious. So in 5 minutes, Canada is going to get their CPI information. The US is going to get their CPI information. There is going to be core inflation rate data. So that's going to be what's going to drive us. So you can see, look at these highs that happened last night. Oh, I should have went ahead and played overnight during the New York session. During the London session, everything else. But you got these bearish divergence all over the place. So we got 5 minutes. So let's run down all the tickers in itself. Over here, you got yourself the oil. Oil is looking like it's sitting a little still. But again, they don't get their information until Wednesday. That's when you're going to go ahead and start to get those oil inventories. And you can kind of see a massive sell-off towards the end of the day, but it didn't really break down anything. So I think they're still in that accumulation phase, so just be careful there. This is gold. Gold is looking like this. You know what, let's get rid of these drawings so that we can see. Gold looks like this, and I think part of the reason why gold looks like this is because we're starting to really pennant this thing. So there is a little bit of an accumulation phase happening, but we're starting to tighten. The tighter you get, the more chances that we get a breakout. Over here is silver. Silver is still holding its base. I think I want to see silver get back into this level, get a retest, because it's a little too far, too gone, too much. Maybe get a nice little cool down here. If it's close to the support as the bearish divergence plays, sometimes it doesn't really break that down, and I think that's what's going to happen because everybody's running into the commodities for obvious reasons. All right, this is your British pound, and the British pound is continuously to drop, so that's why it's kind of funny that the NQ is rising. because now they're finally in sync again. So this is going to be very interesting on how this pans out. Here is Bitcoin. Bitcoin hit $123,000. So you can kind of see they're putting in what looks like an evening start for today. So look for a nice little retracement. I don't think it's going to come back to $100,000 again, but this is the market. It can do whatever it likes. All right, and then we got the Russell. The Russell is trying its best to hold its water, but I do feel like if we do get a sell-off on NQ, ES, and all the majors, you're probably going to see this bad boy start to rally something very vicious. So just keep an eye on the Russell, because they might pour the money that they're taking, park it in the Russell, knowing that the domestic, especially with tariffs and all that stuff, is going all over the place. This is probably where they're going to park their money. And then the last of last is your infamous dollar. Nice little pop. Why are we rising and the dollar's not falling? That's the question that we have, because if that is the case, then maybe we're going to get a full, because it does feel like a bear flag a little bit, but it also feels like a falling wedge. So it kind of give y'all a nice little breakdown. Let me go ahead and widen out this screen. Where are you? Where are you? This one right here. And then I'm going to grab my clipboard. So to kind of understand what I'm talking about in that regard, I'm gonna try to squeeze this into 2 minutes to the best of my ability. We got a nice little sheet of paper. So you got two different type of patterns that you're gonna be dealing with what's going on today, right? You're gonna have where we have this drop, and then it kind of gives you this bear flag type of thing. That's what it could be doing. That's in that lower area right here, from here to here. But if we really squeeze this chart a little bit more, we're running out of time, right? It looks like we had a massive drop, and then we're doing this kind of like falling wedges type of action like this. Like it's going down more, but there's this base that's building, and that usually gives you a nice little opportunity to the upside, because that'll be your wedge if you kind of do it like this. It's like a shoe type of thing, or I guess an elf shoe. Not really a shoe per se, but probably, yeah, I would say maybe elf shoe. That's probably yeah, what it kind of looks like a little bit. So that's what that bad boy kind of looks like. Oh, we got less than a minute coming up in a few. Let me go ahead and give a bigger screen. Let me get rid of my camera. We'll go ahead and wrap that. Yeah, right there. This is what I was looking for. Something like a shoe, where we got this whole entire drop. We're building this base. It's rounding it off in a way, and it looks like it's going to start to scoop, and that's where that scoop or that bear flag kind of happens. So it kind of rounds it out. That's what I'm thinking is kind of happening. All right. Okay. So let's see. I got another. You know what? I'm probably gonna have to put another news one on here. Let's go ahead and look at it from the Be Right Back in a way. And we're not taking a break. I just want to kind of like show y'all the news and the chart at the same time, and you can kind of see the reaction of the market. Let me zoom this in and get over to NQ. We got 12 seconds until that happens. I don't play CPI data directly. NQ. Let me put that in there. 3 seconds. Come on. And delete. All right. Perfect. There we go. All right. Here's our CPI data. Oh, we're pushing up. Look at that. All right. Let's come to a 15-minute. Massive move up. Let's see. They're making new highs here. Nothing popped up in my alert. Trying to see what the data looks like. Let me get a nice little refresh here, and then we'll zoom the screen in a little bit. Get out my way. All right. Okay, so we got here core inflation, or CPI itself, right? This is the data that they're looking for. Is bullish for the dollar, but core inflation rate, we are lower than consensus. Ooh, that does mean if this is getting lighter, that means everything that they were talking about is so-called working, and it's making it bearish for the dollar. So that means investing into the market is not a bad idea. This is year over year. That's what they like to look at. The month over month is another one that they look at, but they were expecting it to be more. But here's the funny thing about it. it is more than last month. So how how is this going to react inside of the market is going to kind of predicate the real action in the market. This is inflation rate in itself, but core inflation is what they're looking for. Again, the producers is tomorrow, so that's going to be a little bit of that nuance that's going to have a little bit of effect too. So I wouldn't run to this all the way through as you think, because I know your first reaction is like, well, it's bearish for the dollar and everything looks good. Let me go ahead and get into these tickers. Probably not the best decision, because if the producers are starting to say, hey, it's a lot worse over here, the producer's price hasn't been priced into current inflation rate, and it might shoot inflation right back up again. I do think it's going to be a little bit more faux. It's not as real as this climate is, because it was a little different when we had inflation data shooting up when we didn't have no tariffs, and then we have things that we can control. We have the levers at this point. If that number comes in a little spicy, making the dollar a little bit stronger, then guess what? You're gonna have to look at that on totality of what normal core inflation, PCE inflation is, because normally it moves up anyhow. So when we're talking about with the tariffs, if we remove the tariffs, it would then lower the producers, and that producers would then lower the CPI. So it's almost like we could kind of like tug and pull at those levers and adjust what Fed Powell can do. So let's go ahead and just kind of run through this real quick and see how it reacted to the market. Very little to the oil, because of course oil's waiting for the oil inventory tomorrow. Gold is actually dropping. Okay, so the gold dropping will raise the dollar. Let's see if silver is dropping too. Yep, long, very long wick. So that first initial pop is them thinking, oh, everything is fine, and that's oh, if the British pound recovers, that will put some stress on the U.S. dollar as well. So that's going to make things interesting. And then let's see, we got Bitcoin. Bitcoin's continuing to the upside, so that's that. Maybe they're pouring into that one while they're getting out of gold. Here's the Russell. So this was what I was explaining. Like you see how the NQ was kind of like pulling itself back a little bit. It looked like they're pouring into both the Russell and NQ. But if this one stays on that consistent rise, I won't be surprised there'll be money that's coming out of things like NQ and ES. And then right here is your dollar. Dollars continue to fall. That was the first spike. Again, that one has much more weight, the CPI, than it does with the core inflation rate. This is just a reading that the Feds kind of use. It gives you a pulse of what's going on in the economy. But this one right here, the CPI data, this one's letting us know, hey, guess what? This dollar is going to drop. There we go. We got another massive hit on the dollar, which is going to put some strength to that downside. I'm going to run through some tickers in a little bit. But of course, you already know at the end of the day, I do have to go over the news. Let me grab my news notes there. That looks good. And let's go ahead and run through them real quick. All right, boom and boom. So the first one, I already touched on it just now. Bitcoin. This thing is $123,000 as short sellers retreat and a crypto week gets underway in Washington. This is going to be very, very good information. Actually, you know what? I'll probably start putting my news articles inside of my descriptions too. So if I use one of them, I'll bring it to your attention. I'll do that. But yeah, so this one, listen, crypto is here. It's here to stay. If you're talking about your individual tickers in itself, like your Ethereums or other coins, your Ethereums, your Solanos, your Cardanos, and everything else, they all get floated up by Bitcoin. So you want to see Bitcoin. This is like our NQ to our, all those coins are like your Teslas and Nvidias, right? So I really like where Bitcoin is going. I think it needs to kind of like, settle itself a little bit, because those that haven't got in, they're probably going to be waiting for cheaper prices. Hence the reason why you got this massive drop off right here. But again, you got a nice fair value gap on the daily. And I think this is the one that's really rocking this one off, is because this one is a good, nice little retest. I would say 113. Let's see if we can get to 113 on Bitcoin, and then you could get yourself a nice little solid rise. Let's go ahead and keep this party going. We also have this right here. Got a couple of downgrades over here. So if you don't know who Procter and Gamble is, then you know you're probably not in the Gen X and all those other stuff. You're probably really young. But in the back of your labels on a lot of the stuff that you have in your house is companies like this one, this one. It's Procter and Gamble, right? And Procter and Gamble has your Head and Shoulders. I think they do like Tide and all that stuff. This company here is losing their market share on Amazon. And again, Amazon's a behemoth. If you're not operating through Amazon, you're asking to go out of business, especially for some small businesses. Companies like, I just watched a whole entire documentary on like Wish.com losing its market share to Temu. All this stuff is happening. There's a lot of moving parts. So I think a lot of these companies are vulnerable, especially those that didn't innovate. And Procter & Gamble probably sits right in that aspect. So I would say chart it out, check it out. But they're mostly known for their dividends. So you might be able to get a nice little entry to get yourself in a position to start getting some dividends from this company. They're not going to go anywhere. They're the distribution point for a lot of products that's under your cabinet or somewhere around your house. So do not count them completely out. And then the last news that we're going to go ahead and break out. Actually, you know, before we get to that, let me go ahead and look at Procter & Gamble. It's been a while since I looked at it. All right, so, and this is the other part. Listen, when I bring up the news, let me really squeeze this chart. When I bring up the news and it's something, just look how long it's been on this down decline already. It looks like I charted this back in the middle of 2024, and you can kind of see it's already coming down. This is like nothing spectacular. So it's breaking below this level, almost like this news is supposed to give us a nice little catalyst to the reason why we're gapping down. So buy the rumor, sell the news. Right now, the news is selling us that. I don't think it's going to continue to the downside right now. It might give you a nice little solid pop. What target are they looking for? Maybe somewhere around here, because we got a nice little area right here that it looks like there's a gap, and they're probably going to try to play to here. This is around January 2024. So just keep that in mind as you're seeing that they're starting to fill into this area. All right, so let's go into the next one. The next one we're going to talk about, again, we've talked about this a little bit yesterday, but this part we didn't talk about, right? Just to kind of give you a little prerequisite, I've played SPX in multiple ways. SPX USD from Forex, the standard one. So in this case, I'm going to use the standard one. There was a time in 2021 when everybody was like, oh, S&P 500 is going straight to 5,000. And I think it was like in the fours, like 42, 45. Then we got to like 48 the next year. And that was the start of the whole entire decline. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen here again, but I just want you to be cognizant of it. This is SPX with bearish divergences as we go on into this higher high. There's targets. I think they're targeting, let's see here, raises its capital to 62.50 from 57.30. Okay, cute. So you just raised it, but we're already here. So you might have wanted to release this before July 14th. Thank you for letting us know. So I think the end of the year is what they're also going to be targeting. Let me see if they have anything here. So it looks like they're raising it again. Nope, still 62.50. It's slightly below 62.800, which is what they're looking for. And then you got some others that say 6,300. All these numbers are cute. But again, buy the rumor, sell the news. Right now the news is saying all of this. The news says 6,300. We got the 62,990, right? So this is just a perfect example of doing so. So let's go ahead and wrap that. I think we covered a good amount of news, especially with the CPI data. Let's go ahead and take a nice little peek over here into our charts, because we're about to go into earnings season. So I do want to cover some earnings tickers along the way. So let's go ahead and get started. I already talked to y'all about JPM. This is JPM. Had their earnings this morning, and we got ourselves a drop down with this problem. Oh, they return more money to shareholders. They found an extra $1 billion. This is not one of those things that you want to kind of laugh at, but it's just funny that why are you dropping? Why are you gapping down? But you got to also remember a lot of people probably saw the writings on the wall through technical analysis, and probably some people are repositioning because they bought some shares to give to their employees. So this is probably the sorry, not their employees. People that work in JPM are going to give shares to their employees. So they probably got order schedules. It's not considered insider trading, right? Especially like 401ks and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they already know that they're going to go ahead and give this to these employees based on their bonuses and everything else. And that's probably what added to this push up. So we're probably getting a little bit of a reprieve here. So if we take a nice fib here and try to understand what could be our pullbacks, let me put a natural one for y'all so I don't confuse y'all. We're back to the 236. We could come back to the 50%, but I don't think you're going to see a sub 280 JPM, at least not this week, or maybe not even for this month. Maybe we'll get a nice little retest towards August, but overall that 50 EMA is trying to make its way to kind of meet it. So I want to see what happens here coming today. Do we actually break this bottom, have this little micro trend that we've been putting on for a little bit? Does this break? If it does, then you could see JPM touch that 50, then bounce, and that's going to be your opportunity. Another one that had earnings this morning was C, which is Citigroup. I kind of told y'all what's going on with Citigroup. I love the chart. I love everything with it. I do wish I had a large position in this because I kind of saw this coming if you've been watching my show. But generally speaking, it looks like that $90 is that next target. I have a target of like 113 as well. Somewhere around here on another chart. I don't have it on this one, so let me just put that here. All right, like around 113. That's going to be like the base of where Citibank actually dropped. So I would love to kind of see how this holds up. Their earnings, look, they're finding money for shareholders. They found almost an extra billion. So they're making money by whatever means. Of course, they got investment banking, their fees, all that stuff. So this was going to be very interesting along the line. So let's go ahead and speed this up a bit. Also, you know, this is going to be a busy cycle because it's usually the first month of the earnings cycle that gets really spicy, where there's a lot of movement and a lot of different things are happening. So the first one I want to kind of bring in is more banks. I like Goldman Sachs. They kind of move really well. If you haven't traded Goldman Sachs, I do suggest you check it out. Even though it is a little on the pricier side because they have earnings this morning too. But you could probably get a nice little recovery. Shout out to those that does the IV flushes. This one is probably going to be in your radar very soon. Maybe play it down to the 50 EMA if this thing pops something violent. But so far it is breaking even. Let's see what the chart looks like in the after hours. So we had some spikes, but it just came right back to its levels. So they could be reloading in this area to see if they can push back up. So just make sure you mark your levels off. You already know how the game goes. We got a couple of them here. There goes one. Come on. Don't you just love technology? You got one here and you got one there. So we're going to see what happens when they figure out which side of the range are they going to go ahead and play. All right, so that's one. Alcoa. I already told y'all about the material space. This thing is going to be trying to make some moves, especially that it's been kind of just drifting. If it was going to fail, it would have failed on the bear flag right here. This is what I was talking about earlier. It would have just broke this down and then fall to the bottom. That's what I probably would have wanted to see. But since we did not do an action like that, then that's why we're getting this drift up as people are getting out of their position. I think this one's going to probably reject when we get closer to 32. We'll see what happens there. If it doesn't, then it might be another level that they're looking for. Maybe 800 EMA. We're already at the 200 and they're already rejected. But I think the momentum is not strong enough for them to drop. Nice little reprieve will be good. And then it just gets back above 30. 30 will probably be your psychological level. And then kind of holds from there. And as it holds from there, then it gives you one more push to the upside and gets into that 32, 33. So just keep an eye out for Alcoa. Their earnings is tonight. All right. Oh, actually, I take that back. Oh, I'm already moved on to my list. I forgot. It's tomorrow night. This is on my list for tomorrow nights. Okay, yeah, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. I apologize. I just realized I'm clicking this button. I'm not actually looking at the fact that it says tomorrow night. So this is tomorrow night. So for my GS folks, I apologize. It's for tomorrow. It's for tomorrow. My bad. All right. So yeah. So we got United Airlines. That's also tomorrow. This one I don't like to do airlines that much, but if I do, it's usually United Airlines because American Airlines tends to have to use a lot of cash to kind of move things around. This one returns money to shareholders, but they just have way too much shares floated for its space. 324 is not too much, but when you get something like American Airlines, 649, it's double that. Hence the reason why it's still stuck in this little area. I prefer investing into Boeing. Like I said, it's like the roach. It just does not ever die. It just kind of continues. Then for me to get into some of the airlines, even though I've invested before, but we're kind of doing this inverse head and shoulder type of action. I will probably just play that for that and then just get out of it. I don't like to hold on to airline stocks. All right, and then going into the earnings cycle, we got quite a few of them that I am still keeping my eye out for this month. T-Mobile USA, I do think this thing still has more downside. It did its pop a little earlier than I expected. It failed to continue the bump and run. I wanted them to fill this order. I think if they never made the pop that they did, somewhere around here, we would have hit here, somewhere in the middle, after September, after the earnings. But it kind of did the pop way earlier than I expected. Their earnings is going to be next week, July 23rd. And to kind of give you a little bit more context, this is what it looks like on the monthly. I'm going to hide my drawings real quick. It's been struggling. That's it. It's the leader in its space, but it's struggling to kind of make highs. If this area fails, which is what I want to see, I want them to kind of retest. I want them to come down here. I want them to attract more investors. I want them to see that this level is strong enough that 228 is what is the average around the means. But if this thing gets anywhere near $200, I think they're going to test some areas in here going under 200 and then bounce back up and try to get some more highs again. No one's replacing T-Mobile at this point. They've been a behemoth. All right, let's go ahead and look at CVX. CVX is making its move. I still have my questions and doubts for all of oil in itself because I think they're going to up production, which is adverse to the price of oil. Get that out the way. Adverse to the price of oil, so that's going to make things very interesting. We came to that 155 level and then rejected. So this looks like a evening star. Hold on. Did I reset my computer a little bit? Okay, there we go. Looks like my screen just kind of froze for a second. Is there? Okay, there we go. So I think this break back down under this register and this level is because CVX has hit their gap and that's all they were looking for. So let's just give an idea, right? Just out of speculation because that's what our jobs are. Assuming that this higher high is going to be the micro trend that continues, then that means we will be taking another deviation to this angle. We're already here, right? We already got first touch, second touch, and this would be our third touch. So if there's going to be a bounce, it probably would be today with a stop loss like maybe like 149, 150. But the Stochastic is pointing down. We're curling the MACD. So you got to ask yourself some questions. Is this strong enough? Maybe. Let's do another exercise here. I love trend lines because trend lines kind of tell you the story when it's all said and done. We got a nice little peak that happened here, and our second line is over here. Okay, cool. So since we have this part of the trend line and that part of the trend line happening, so could it be, and this is the biggest question, could it be this is our breather to stay on the bullish side of the MACD to kind of continue to take out this area because we are in the middle of a fair value gap to a certain degree. I know it's not going to look really fair value gap-y, but this is what I'm looking at, right? And could we be filling this area? Well, the first thing that needs to happen, we got to build a base that's going to attract supporters. It could be back over here, but I think it's going to be today. I'm looking for a more bullish day for oil and CVX and all of them, and that will take us right back to that high. But this area is sitting with a lot of bears because this will be the first touch inside of what will be a fair value gap in that area. If you don't believe that's a fair value gap, look at this weekly. we've been drilling into a weekly fair value gap that looks like this. That's why I love where it looks like price is just completely under control by an individual ticker, and then it just an individual side, and they just try to take out the bear. In this case, it's the bears. The bulls are trying to take as much bears out because they're looking and seeking for higher prices. Maybe even get this to get to the bullish side on the weekly. All right, so that's what I see there. UPS, I'm gonna be quick here because we kind of run a little bit over time. UPS here, this one's a little annoying. I thought it finally found its base and it's kind of curling, but this could be a massive, massive bear flag. Just like kind of drifted up here and then they drop it. So it's going to be very interesting if they can hold this trend, but they've been doing it over and over and over and over again. So I'm trying to figure out, can one of this be the pullback that gives it a healthy pullback? Because if we go over to the weekly, it looks like this. Very vertical, and it might need a little bit of a break. So I want to see what happens here. $100 is a strong psychological level. I think they're probably waiting for the earnings. If they say anything like, I'm not returning money to shareholders, or we missed on revenue, maybe not missed on revenue. If this thing is a good surprise, they didn't miss on revenue, might be okay. But if it's like in line and they miss revenue, that means any shakeup, they can lose money. So investors will probably run. All right, Starbucks, another one we're going to speed through. CEO's taking over. You can kind of see in the ticker, it's been doing its job. It kind of buoyed the ship, and everything's kind of like sitting on that 80, 85. The previous CEO was, I want to say the previous CEO was back here, all the way up into here. They knew there was CEO was coming. They got out, and then the new CEO stepped in, and this was the CEO gap that we put in. So we filled the CEO gap, and we're back here again. So for all our investors that stepped out, do we fill this right back up? So I'm looking for $95 to hold with some strength because they rejected it really hard. What else we got? We got Newmont. This is in the material space. I wish I realized that this was happening. I used to do materials when we did our accountability groups. They're in charge of copper, silver, lead, zinc, and other metals. Incidentally, material companies like Newmont is going to rise with prices on copper. Copper has been on a tear. Platinum's been on a tear. Silver's on a tear because a lot of them are taking their money out of gold and putting it in there because they've been laggards in the material space. So this one, I should have seen this coming and just kept it because I still chart it. I love to look at it. But this is a move that I think most of it's already gone, but I don't think this is where it ends. A nice little rejection with a nice little support here will be key for us to go ahead and give another rise up. And the last one is my baby SoFi, and this one is continuing to rip. Well deservedly. We're back into its IPO-ish levels and then some, and we're going to see what happens when it gets into these 23, 25s, 28s, and everything else. I do think it needs to come back to like 16 bucks before it does that, but we'll see what happens there. All right. Just to give y'all a little recap, and we're probably going to end it here. CCJ, we talked about this yesterday. And if you look on the daily, this thing is completely pinned. It does have its earnings, which coming on Thursday in the morning. But this is a nice little rebound here that I'm looking on CCJ. I was talking to some of the people in the community, and I was telling them there's a strong possibility we're going to get to like $76. If you're not part of the community, it's very important that you hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button. I'll start to give some information on how to be part of it. But the first thing I let them know to kind of give them a little bit of a reminder is when you're doing your charting, you want to make sure when you chart it in its totality so that way you can understand where it can go. If I go over to the daily, for example, right, we were drifting down, but guess what? This looks like a bull flag in a way. So the first thing that popped up, this was in my alert system. This is what I do for the community. You will see, where are you, CCJ? There it goes. So CCJ, it says conditions has been met on the 2 hour, and this is what was kind of like signaling me, was because we had a massive, let's see, this was at 3:30. So that was our break right here. And the funny thing about it, it didn't give it to me once. It gave it to me twice at 11:30. So that was the completion of the 9:30 candle. So you can kind of see nice little massive push up accumulation phase. That's when the signal went out. And I said, look out for that 76 level because they're going to probably attack that 75. And that's exactly what they did. So just give y'all a little heads up. If you want to be part of it, by all means, like I said, don't forget to like, subscribe. Go ahead and DM me for more details because the one-on-ones are open. Go ahead and sign up for that. That way you can go ahead and get the greatest information and also coaching from yours truly. It's not difficult, I promise you. I know y'all like, wait a minute, I don't want to do it one-on-one. I don't even charge. I just want to know, give me the money, show me where the money is. And that's what this show is really designed before you take the trade, for you to actually understand what's happening. But if you really want to have the nuances and be a world-class level of an investor, I don't even want to teach you to be a trader, but be in the right positions at the right time. Click the link down below. Get your one-on-one. Send me a DM if you want to be part of that community, because we are getting rich and fit trying. That said, I'm going to bid you a fond farewell. Thank you for participating and sharing to your friends and family. And I'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. for the PPI data. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.